And it's Gordo here from Gordo's Games, and we're back with some more Digimon TCG content today. And today, as you may see just down below, we're doing a tier list. BT12 is on the horizon. Yes, we have had the sad news of the delays up until May for anybody UK side. Anybody that's not UK side, you can enjoy all these nice new goodies as you go along. But yeah, we're here to go through what we've got coming up, where things kind of stand, and I just want to disclaimer first of all, this is all a matter of opinion from my side of things. If you disagree, leave a comment, let's discuss it. Change my mind, by all means. I'm happy to have people's input because I'm not an expert on all these decks. I've played a few of them. I know generally what they're looking to do. I'm not an expert. I just spend way too much time playing cards. But if you do enjoy the content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications so you know when this content goes live for you. But let's get into it. So, we're going to start off with a bit more of a, what I would say at the front of the list. So, security control or tact control we'll go with. Just anything that denies your opponents of the cards to take memory back when they swing. Just generally security control with lots of bombs and security, and just generally taking resources back from your opponent. So you're running things like the Mimi, the Karis. So when your opponent goes to capitalize and use anything, you're going to then take that away from them. For instance, if you run the Mimis and your opponent has the use an X antibody thinking it's free, tap, you then gain a memory, you can potentially take turn back from them. Generally just a good deck. Never really changes much at this point. I don't think there's any drastic support for it, but it's still a very viable deck. With the new mulligan rules as well, generally a little bit, because you have a good idea of what potentially things you're not going to see in security, or what you are going to see in your security, should I say, because you get that first hand mulligan. So if you draw a hand of 5 options, you know, put those back in the deck, there's a chance there you're not going to draw the same 5 back, and they could end up in your security. So I'm going to go with 1.5 here. Not tier 1, the deck's by no means is meta defining, but it does well in certain matchups, so it's a very low end 1.5, I'd say. Armor Rush, I haven't seen a great deal from this deck support wise going into the next meta, or anything too much to change how that it plays. Obviously it's a good deck overall. It's been good in some certain rogue situations, taking some wins, but I definitely say it's looking to be a tier 2 deck. There's a lot of decks that you can either outpace it or just control it. So things, Blackwargreymon is still a thing. The Digivolve and deletion over removal really hurts the deck. There's just a lot of decks that can seem to do the similar thing a lot easier. For instance, you got Beelzemon, which just plays out no end of Impmons by accident because it's all RNG. Whereas this one, you have to play out everything. You have to pay your cost for things. So I think it's tier 2. It's got a good strat. You can build it in a variety of ways. It's a fun deck, but I don't think it's any kind of gatekeeper or a tier 1 deck overall. Orumon, or Alphamon, Orumon, or you can, whichever one to go with. Basically, Alphamon deck. Obviously, you got the hit to Doro Grey. It hasn't really had anything since then, but there's going to be more things going forward for it. But the deck is still, if with the right pilot, this deck can do well. I do think it has some strong matchups depending on how well you're versed in the deck. Sadly, with the Doro Grey protection, it does mean it's a little bit weaker to a board state, because you can't just leave things there and you can't just hope to survive against the amount of removal people are running these days. So I'm going to go a high-end tier 2 deck for this one. Supermon. It's a good overall deck. Has some great synergy into the meta, because the fact is I think it does well into things like Beelzemon, purely because Beelzemon can run out of tempo. So this is okay. It's going to change a little bit with the new X anti-Beels, but if they don't see that, you're at a point where if you just keep recovering against that kind of deck, they don't have enough time and resources to get through all of your security. So I think generally this is a strongish deck. I am gonna my one here is I'm gonna put this as Rogue, purely because I do think it has a good spot. Yes, Beelzemon X anti can trash a lot of security and just go for game, but if your opponent isn't playing, that isn't managing those resources, if they are just willingly just swinging and hoping for the best, and just keep trashing, they can get themselves caught out by not keeping an eye on those things and being able to have the, for instance, the trash to be able to get the +1 security attack on the starter PLs to then go into the ex-ante to then be able to do double checks or whatever it needs to do, or trash enough security. There's far too many things they have to account for. So I do think like Beelzemon ex-ante is just a very high, it is a very RNG deck, but there is a good amount of skill to it with managing your resources. So I'm gonna put this as rogue because I think it will do well. Alongside with that, I'm just going into Venusmon. I don't think it's going to road. I do think it'd be 1.5. I always thought Venusmon was very underplayed. The card is a problem. It has a blanket -1, and if you have -1, you don't get your wind digivolving effects. And a lot of things do trigger from you having those wind digivolvings. And if you have any kind of modifications to your security attack, you can't attack into her. So which means if she's not down to security, and you have any modifiers, she can't be touched outside of using an option basically. So she's just a problem, and generally a very, very strong card. This one hurts me because Beelzemon is one of my daughter's favorite Digimon. The deck, I don't want to put it in meme. It does get support further down the line, but at the moment it just lacks the pace to keep up with the meta, and its boss cards aren't doing enough. The Pheonixmon seems to be doing the most. Marsmon is a great card, but there is too many outs to it by just suspending things. Like Bloomlord is a horrendous matchup for Marsmon. I'm going to put it in meme at this point. I think it's a fun deck. Well, definitely worth playing. If you haven't checked it out, there is a deck list on the channel. By me to check that out as well. But yeah, we're going to put that in meme. Supermon, I think there's less things that actually lose to Supermon now, because Supermon was great against tower decks. Those just went for a single stack and you can just turn it into a Supermon and then pop swing, you die, you pop theirs. But Cross Hearts, Hunter X, Shinegreymon with the Marcus, things like that. There's just so many things now that don't really go single stack. You can look to spam at the board. Beelzemon, again, spamming loads of Impmons out where it can. I do think it's going to be... It is going to be meta dependent. I don't think it has a strong place in it. I'm going to go below tier 2. I am going to give it a tier. I'm not going to put it in meme because, yeah, I know it's meme. I'm going to have to do it. But it's a better meme than Phoenix. The sad one. The truly, truly sad moment. Blackwargreymon X anti. The deck, there's various ways to build it. You have building into the promo Blackwargreymon. You can go the defensive way with the Blackwargreymon X anti, opt in for more of the blocker variant and then redirect and stuff like that. The problem being, obviously, the pacing is an issue now. The meta itself is just getting quicker and quicker. And with the Hexagram X, where I know within complete reason, it's justified, but it massively has slowed down the Blackwargreymon version of things. So I do think it's a 1.5 deck because it still has a very, very strong control aspect to it and can pull out games and obviously look to slow your opponent down massively. But I don't think it's a tier 1 deck at this point. Very sad for myself being a Blackwargreymon player, but we make do. Loop. One of these decks, obviously it has a lot of combo pieces to it. If you don't see the piece or you see things in the wrong order, it can really struggle. But generally when it goes off, it can really go off. I want to go tier 1.5 for it. I do think the deck has some very good win cons to it. It has some good strats. The Minerva, the Merva, both of those synergize well on the deck and they do a lot for it. Being able to just either do multiple checks or somehow multiple bodies one by one, just keep checking, keep pushing, or even to go Merva just to have the ability to spam some things on the board, 1 or 2 bodies that have blocker, and if you're looking at retaliation as well. Galactamon, not a tier 1 deck, not a meme or rogue, I wouldn't say. I would go a tier 2 deck. In Ultimate Cup, I do think does stand up quite well because it's unhindered. The deck just runs as it would normally. In normal meta, I just think there's a few too many things that I'll either look to outpace it, or just generally not even let it get to do its thing. There's too many things that bottom deck Venmons, or just bounce them back to hand, or even just outright delete them. And that's not the worst thing, them get deleted, but still they need to be able to try and sustain something on board or get to their win con in some fashion. And I just don't think in a normal meta Galactamon can do that as well as it would like to. But I want to go tier 2. I do think the deck's I do like the deck strategy. I do like the deck as a whole. I do think there's an interesting concepts to it, and you know, he's a cool looking boss monster. One of our new ones to BT12 then. So Emperorgreymon. I am going to go tier 1. So red hybrids basically. I do think the deck has got some strong consistencies now built into it more. Problem with red hybrids previously, it was the case of there was nothing to really just keep filtering through your hand. You'd reveal, possibly see the wrong things, bottom deck a lot of stuff, and we only had one decent tamer for the hybrids archetype, which was the Takuya 3 cost. But the problem with that one, it didn't reset you to 3, so you could be choked very easily. So to the point of you weren't able to get your Digimon out that you want to get. With BT12 you do get access to the new Takuya, which also has a very good inheritable, which gives 2k, and I think if you're at 10k or more, similar to the other Takuya, when you attack security, you gain 2 memory. Now that's not even if you live or anything like that, as long as it's just when you attack. So overall that's just a very, very strong inheritable, allows you to extend out your turns. And you do have access to some of the new Aguni, Burning Grey, Older, and Emperor Grey. And there's a lot of synergy with adding tamers back, playing tamers out from hand, playing flame monsters from hand when things die. So there's a lot more recursion and board presence. So it's looking a little bit better overall. Gallantmon. Now I haven't had a chance to play test much into this one. It has got a new boss, obviously the new Gallantmon itself, which plays similar to the older one from Red Hybrids, I believe, whereas you can tuck some things as the sources from trash to then Evo into it for a cost of, I think it's 4. So it does have a way to like cheat out into a level 6, which is nice, because Gallantmon, one of its biggest problems is if you lose your stack, you basically have no comeback, because you don't really have space to play into a hybrid to go into your thing, and you just kind of fall behind. This gives you that potential chance to have that other out. So even if you don't want to raise out something from raising, you can go straight off your tamer if you've got the sources there, clear up their board and give yourself that bit more time as well. So I do think this is going to be there as a 1.5 deck. I'm not too sure. I don't think it's going to be a tier 1 deck, but I do think 1.5. That could be the hot take where people call me wrong, and you know what, I'd be happy if I am wrong. I'm a big Gallantmon fan, so if you don't think it's tier 1, call me out on it. Ulforce. Ulforce in the last variation of it is a very strong deck. It has its win con in play. It can try and do as much damage as quick as possible quite easily in comparison to a lot of other decks, and it's a synergy with playing out tamers on the swing. So you evo up into the Ulforce, you play a tamer, unsuspend the Ulforce, swing, tap the arena, play out with a tamer. The ability to just keep cycling out tamers for no cost is great, and the Ulforce X Anti just gives it that last bit of kicker. Because one of the big problems for Ulforce is you are running just a normal 4. You're running 4 Ulforces basically, unless you're taking in things like Mirage or the other Ulforce 0. So if you don't see those Ulforces, you generally just lose because you haven't had your boss monster able to push out for the game as much as you could do. So this gives you that other level 6 just to be able to try and do that a little bit more, or even add some more context to the Ulforce that you've already got. So if you've got a little layer out of it, you go into your Ulforce X and then Ulforce X Anti and keep pushing just that little bit more. So for me, it's a tier 1 deck. And the support does help the deck quite a lot, and I do see you doing pretty well. Imperial. Now obviously this is something that a good friend of mine, Dan Vang, will absolutely love. most likely to play into. I feel like it's very combo orientated, more so than the old one. I feel like the old one pulled that combo off a lot easier than this one does. I just don't think it's as quick as it would like to be in comparison to the older stuff. And I think it would be a tier 2 deck. I don't have a great deal to say on it. I know generally there are some new additions to it, a ways to gain back memory when you're dealing Digivolve, things like that. But overall, I just don't think the deck, when I played against it, does enough to warrant being any higher than tier 2. It can be quite bricky. Shinegreymon. Now, the first iteration of Shinegreymon, I think, doesn't quite have the punch it's going to have later on in future sets. In the future sets, I do think it will go up to tier 1, but I do think it's in a tier 1.5 region. Reason being is that there's not many ways to deal with those tamers, and if they just keep punching you with a Marcus tamer, which is just meme central, it's horrendous. Because it's like, if they're set at Rise Greymon, they have the 2 Marcus out, they raise out, they do pay the 1 memory to make Marcus a 3k Digimon or whatever. When it swings, you can evo your stack into level 6. Then you get the whole thing of, if they become 6k, then doing 2 checks, and you've lowered their security now. It's just, there's a whole lot of shenanigans, and I feel like the deck has got a lot to offer. I mean, it is good to see another Shinegreymon now, because my last Shinegreymon I enjoyed playing was the yellow one back in the day. Not quite the red one. Red one's okay for like some niche red OTKs. But yeah, definitely the yellow one, but unfortunately there's just not enough board presence where it's relevant to do that. Or if there is board presence, it's stuff that doesn't care about being deleted anyway. So it's nice to see a new Shinegreymon on the scene. Wargreymon. Now, I've always been a Blackwargreymon fan over a Wargrey, but I do feel Wargrey as the stronger meta for itself. Having access to the raid mechanic is very, very strong. The effect of, if it's it has the all turns, if an attack is redirected, you can unsuspend this Digimon. So it doesn't necessarily have to be him himself, but being able to unsuspend is a big, massive change of things. And at the same time, you've got the new Metal Greymon, which is one of the reasons Greymon X got hit, because it would have been a 1-cost Evo, which is just a massive amount of tempo. So I completely understand the Greymon X, the logic for hindering decks like this, and obviously how things look meta-wise. But yeah, it's still a 3-cost Metal Grey. One of the big problems for Blackwargreymon X is the Metal Grey is great, but I don't think it synergizes well with that, because it's all playing into the raid side of things. It gets piercing, that's great, but if I can't swing through something because I don't have the Metal Grey that allows me to attack and suspend it, then I'm either not swinging through it, or I'm just going to swing into security. So, but the Metal Grey into this deck alone, having raid built into it, and the effect, if I remember correctly, is when you redirect attack, so when you use raid, if you leave Digimon or whatnot, you can then play a Taikamiya from your hand, or no, a level 4 cost or lower red or black tamer. So that can be Yuya, that can be Taikamiya's, all variations just red or black. So it's a very, very strong card, and it's good control at level 5. So I do think this deck has a lot more potential going into the meta to be able to try and keep that pace, where unfortunately Blackwargreymon does lose that. Chaos X Anti. So Machinedramon is one of those decks that's never really kind of defined a meta, but it's never really fallen off. It's a very, very strong deck, has a very strong win con when it gets going, but it does suffer to the brick quite well. Things like Analog Man do help that, because they do give you the redirect to slow down your opponent's attacks, and at the same time they do give the whole trash one cyborg to draw a card and gain a memory, allowing you to extend your turns that little bit. Now I am just going to get up the actually no, I'm not. I'll get up my phone whilst I'm looking. The Chaosdramon X Anti. Now I believe it has a couple of alternate effects that go with it. One is you get the protection clauses of any machine or Chaosdramon that's in the stack, which overall is pretty massive, because you have the Machinedramon that says if this would be deleted, you can detach two level 5 sources to go ahead and keep this thing on board. Basically, you have the Chaosdramon, which stops being bottom decked, bounced, or deleted by detaching 2 sources. So you end up adding yourself a lot of different ways to minimize how you lose your board presence. So yeah, I do having that little additional clauses in there really can slow decks down, because obviously piercing, things like that, don't go through if you detach to keep them alive, because piercing is worded if you have to delete the Digimon. If a Digimon is deleted, then do your checks afterwards. If it's not deleted, they don't occur. So always something to keep in mind. It's a very niche one. Doesn't come out a great deal of times, but it can save games. It has done for me before. I can't seem to find the word for it. I'll come back to that when I find it. But it also has old turns one. I'm trying to remember it. It's gonna bug me. It's really gonna bug me. All right, I'm gonna put that in its place after I found it. Restramon. The deck plays into potentially putting things underneath other Digimon. So like you taking your level 6s, level 7s, and then place them under things like an Impmon, for instance, or things like that, really disrupting stacks and being able to cycle a lot of strong players going up there. I do think this will be a tier 1 deck. I do think it'll be played into a lot. Ignore the fact that I've got Hunter on there twice, so this Restramon Hunter, yeah, I think it's going to be a tier 1 deck. It's definitely going to be up there as overall a strong contender, and it has the similar kind of playstyle to Cross Hearts, but it's not so much about the Digicross, and you still have to evo up somewhat, but you do have the save mechanics built into it all. Beelzemon X Anti, tier 1. Beelzemon at this current point in BT11, that is a overall strong deck. It has a bit about RNG that goes in line with it, so you do have to try and look out at some of your mills, and sometimes you can deck yourself out too quickly without having the resources to be able to take game. Beelzemon X Anti does fix that. You know, the evo for, you know, when you evo for every 10 cards in your trash, you get to trash one of your opponent's security. So security control, it laughs at security control. It's able to chip out away so much of people's resources and just kind of push games to a very, very tough comeback area, because when they're sitting there with, like, let's say 3 security, they're quite comfortable, and then obviously you just go bit into BL's trash 3 security swing for game. Okay, great. Yeah, that's a real tempo change overall. So that is definitely a tier 1. Cross Heart, so we got X7 and an X7 Superior. So I think this is up here as a tier 1 deck. Cross Hearts, obviously, after its performance at Worlds, did a lot of work, put in some good overall time, and ended up taking the win. And generally, it's just one of those decks that can catch people off guard, because if you don't have answers to it, or if you're not running Tamer Hate or something like that, the deck just keeps cycling things out. So you are naturally on the back foot, whereas you need to start doing more damage than them in quick succession, or you have to have something to slow down the damage they're doing to you. So stopping chip damage with blockers and things like that. And blockers aren't as big a thing as they used to be. Redirects are more of a thing, of course. But yeah, so I do think it's definitely up there. I have found it now. So Chaosdramon X Anti, Digivolve 2 from Machinedramon or Chaosdramon. Start your main phase, place 1 Digimon card with Cyborg or Machine its traits from your trash at the bottom of Digimon's Digivolution cards. So it's not level specific as well, so you can tuck in Machines and Chaosdramons to get yourself that additional potential clauses. All turns, this Digimon gains all effects of Machinedramon and Chaosdramon in this Digimon's Dissolution card. So it means you can also use the other BT11 Machinedramon to tuck in, which is on deletion, you can then bottom deck an Analog Man to play out a machine from hand, which means you can keep cycling more and more and more. And final effect, all turns once per turn, when the Digimon will delete it, trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. Yeah. I mean, I want it to do more. I do think it's going to still have the issue of consistency, bricky hands, and things like that. I'm going to leave it in Rogue. I don't think it's 1.5, and I don't want to say tier 2. I think this could just be a deck in certain metas that could do very, very well. So I'm going to go Rogue with it. Please, if anybody has an input, fire away at me there. I'm a big Machinedramon fan. It's one of the few decks that I've spent my time trying to pick up all the ults I can for, and I want it to do well. Moving on, Jazmon. Mulligans are a thing, and Jazmon with mulligans is generally something to be concerned about, because obviously one of Jazmon's biggest problems, or Jazmon GX, biggest problems was bricking. So having that mulligan does give that deck a little bit more life. I would say 1.5. I still think the deck can do well. I don't think the deck's ever been bad since it's been out. It literally is just that consideration for mulligan, and the new way mulligan I think does help the deck substantially. So I'm going to say 1.5. Blue Flare. Blue Flares, I want to say tier 1 here. The deck itself has overall performed well since its release. There's various different iterations for it. So you've got the red and blue package for additional security checks. You've got the blue control package, you know, just stun things, bounce things. Generally, the deck does what it needs to do. It's Beelzemon boost is a very strong card. It's not broken by any means, but it is a very strong card on the basis. It costs 5, which is a hefty amount, but you have the chance to get 2 cards in hand and a tamer. So if you do get all value there, technically it costs 1 in effect. You know, you get 2 cards and a tamer for it. Your tamer costs you 4 normally. So yeah, it's basically your plus at that point. So generally, yeah, tier 1 deck. Overall, it does what it needs to do, no questions about it. Darkknightmon X. I'm going to say tier 2 deck. I don't think it's 1.5 deck. It's not really if you get into tier 1. It really just it has a good strategy. It can be quite defensive. It can be quite controlling the fact that you use the Darkknightmon X to then get rid of the tamers on your opponent's side. So you do have some tamer hate in there. But I do feel like it's going to struggle pace-wise with some of these other decks. So I think I'm going to go tier 2 on that one. Dorbick, time and time again, surprises a lot of people, whether it be Ultimate Cup format or generally in any sense. Dorbick seems to do relatively well. It's a big body that you can potentially cost you 3 and has rush, and it can delete some. I'm going to go tier 1.5. I could be biased there because I played Dorbick myself and I think it's a great deck. But generally this deck can catch people off guard. The whole way of playing it can suffer to the brick, but again, mulligans are in effect. So that does help things like this, but having like the combos of the Majoramon for the restand, additional security checks, playing it with the Blackwargreymon Ragnar variants, there's various different versions to this deck which do have strong win cons to them. So I do think it's up there as a 1.5 deck. Bloomlord and Hydra. Now, I should just rename this Quartzmon. Overall, Bloomlord and Hydra are strong decks. Yeah, I'm controversial. We're going to 1.5. It's very strong decks because of the fact of what they do. Bloomlord can get multiple checks out, while Hydra can control the board, bottom deck resources, things like that. They both have the areas where they're both useful, and Quartzmon gives you that big shut off key to say, okay, pin everything. I'm just going to attack with this one Digimon once at a time, once at a time per turn, because the only thing we'll unsuspend is Quartzmon. Sorry, I'm really struggling for words this evening. But yeah, so Quartzmon is a really strong control piece. It does add a lot to the deck overall, because it does pin things like Cool Boys down, all sorts of tamers. So if there's anything that's going to raise out, you'll be able to tap to gain memory and plus out your turn. You're not going to be able to do that. So yeah, could be a tier 1. I could be wrong. This may change as the meta develops, but I'm going to say strong 1.5. D-Brigade. It's a tier 2 deck. D-Brigade, if you don't play the newer stuff, is just basically Rookie Rush and can be quite consistent. I don't think it's meta defining or changing how things are going to be played out, or people are going to be teching to beat that particular deck in any sort of fashion. But it does have a strong win con, so I'm going to go with tier 2. It is a little bit quicker than things like Dark Knight, and that's overall being able to swing with a Commandramon, play out another Commandramon, next turn swing with a couple more, just keep playing out until you get your Darkknightmon for rush, swing for game, or high risk game. It's just a very straightforward, this is how we're going to play this out. With Blackwargreymon X being a little bit slow, I do feel like Max Day gets better. Mass Day's generally got a few good pieces going for it anyway. It can suffer a bit, but again, mulligans are in effect, so things like this will help a lot of these combo piece decks, whereas you need to be seeing these pieces as quick as possible. But generally, it has got the right amount of security bombs, so Chaos Degradation, Hell Scythe, all these things that can possibly add advantage to your board state and move your opponents. And with things like with Blackwargreymon, I think one of the bigger problems was promo Blackwargreymon. Having you'll be able to shut off options and stuff like that. It just really stopped this from doing anything. And there's going to be other things like, for example, BT12 bred hybrids. You've still got access to the old Ulforceveedramon, which says no to options. So there are a few things that will say no to it, but I do think this just has a little bit more space and breathing room to be involved. So I do think it's a tier 1.5. Similar to Alphamon, mulligans. Jazmon and X1, I feel like same problem there. They just lose the bricks. Alphamon is a really strong deck and great amount of control. Even if you don't get into the Alphamon, the Sledgemon himself does a hell of a lot. So I do think it's a 1.5 deck. Yeah, that would be my call on that one. But overall, that is my consideration for BT12 as a whole. There are, I think I did miss one or two decks. So Melga, I haven't forgot about Melga. I just put on the list, should I say. I'd say that's a 1.5 deck. I don't think it's 1.0, or tier 1, should I say. Yes, Blackwargreymon has a not as promising matchup into it because we can't outpace them enough. But there are enough things that say no to Melgrove at this point. There's enough decks that have strong options, which are just going to outright blow out of the water. So I think it'd be 1.5, if anything. But yes, if you do like the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you know when this content goes live for you. Leave any comments down below for me on the video yourself, or any hot takes you want to throw in there. By all means, I'm open to discussion on these ones. I'd love to see what people's views are. So this is purely based on my opinion, and I am not by any means a professional with all of these decks. Some of them I played quite a lot, some of them I haven't played as much, but I have played against them. So from my side of things here at Gordo's Games, thanks for tuning in. Let's get digital, let's get going.